Welcome to the Norwood School Board's Committee meeting at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, June 15th. Ms. Campos, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Atwood? Absent. Ms. Ballard?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Present.
Mrs. Raver?
Present.
Mrs. Rarica?
Present.
And if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And topic number 3 is our discussion item for this evening, 3.01 construction update. And I believe we have a guest here to do that.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start and talk about the building moves. We started with the first day of summer this year. On the first day, we had planes moving in storage here, and they moved the east wing of this building for the Norwood View people back up to their Carthage Avenue location at Norwood View. They got that accomplished in about a week. The second week of June, they started moving the Williams Avenue teachers and furniture and supplies and everything from the Williams Avenue location to this east wing here at the middle school. They didn't quite get as much done as we would have hoped that second week, last week, but we knew with not having an elevator at that building that was going to take quite a bit more time. So they're still working on that this week. We're hoping that that finishes up by the end of this week. As far as the view construction goes, with the delay in the windows that we had, that pushed it like a domino effect of a number of other things back. So they're not quite finished up there, but they were able to give us enough square footage space so that we could get the items moved out of this building and up there into about 70 or 80% of the classrooms that are finished. So we've kind of doubled up on, we were trying to get like 2 classrooms worth of furniture into one of the finished classrooms. And then as the rest of the classrooms finish up, we'll just take the rooms that belong where they belong to their respective places. All in all, it's going pretty well. We're hoping that that does finish up by the end of June so that we can get everything out where it needs to be. The high school phase 2 project is going along well. Started off again with the first day of summer. They started right away with removing the old fluorescent lighting and the VAV boxes that mount in the hallways and feed the particular classrooms or spaces. You may remember last year we had all the ceilings taken out, so that enabled us to jump right into it this year. So that's moving along well and on schedule. As far as the Williams Avenue project, as we're getting everything vacated out of that building, the construction company hopes to be starting in the next week or 2. They've actually had some people on site getting some preliminary work done. They did take a core sample, you may remember, of the roof, and they found that there was a caustic material on the roof that kind of changed the way we had to address the new roof being installed. We were originally hoping to use some type of anchors to anchor the new roof down, but with the caustic material they found, they said that's probably not a good idea. So then we started looking at some adhesives, and we said, well, that might not be a good idea. So we're not exactly sure what the final solution is, but we've got different options we're looking at. It may come to the point where we have to take a layer off of the roof before we put the new one on. So I think that's a little synopsis of each of the buildings I've got. I don't know if we've got any other questions about anything, but as far as things are moving along pretty smoothly.
So they're looking for a solution to what Brandon brought up last time about the adhesives not being so great.
Correct.
I can't remember if we discussed this or not, but was any of the roofing covered with insurance? Was that still under warranty from when we last had work done, or is none of it included? This would be a fresh start.
I think it would be a fresh start.
Okay. But that we were worried about making sure the warranty would hold going forward. Correct. With whatever work we did.
That's exactly
okay.
Right.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it.
Thanks for keeping everything moving, Mr. Peter. It's a massive undertaking.
It's a little bit of a juggling act, but it's keeps you busy.
And I was telling them before the meeting, we've already had community comments saying how awesome view is looking. The windows are looking great. I think it was really worth that decision. The curb appeal on the building is coming together, and I think having all of our buildings match is going to be a feather in our cap for years to come. All right, moving right along. Number 4, adoption of the agenda. I'd like to motion that we adopt the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Ms. Camphouse, would you call the roll?
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Raver?
Yes.
Mrs. Ware?
Yes.
All right, and with that passing, let's move on to number 5, the Education Committee. Since Brandon is not here, Sally, would you like to take us away?
Absolutely. Item 5.1 is the textbook adoption. It's Envision 2018 Algebra 1 and Geometry. And then in 5.2, there are some new courses that are listed, some for the middle school and some for the high school. So for the middle school, we have Youth Entrepreneurs, Career Connections, Tech for Today, and Pre-Engineering. Those are all elective type classes offered to middle school this year. And in the high school, piano and keyboard and a percussion class that are being offered. And that's all I have.
Very nice. Thank you very
Those
much.
look really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome to add the STEM and for career readiness for our middle schoolers. That's awesome. All right, and moving on to number 6, for personnel, Superintendent Ronan.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, item number 1, we have 4 administrative contracts up for renewal. In section 2, we're hiring a high school counselor. You know, Ray Lynn Burton retired. Tom Munchin, he's going to Norwood View. He's requested to return to his elementary roots. So we have hired an experienced high school counselor to replace him. Amanda Havlin, and even though she has the same last name as Terry Havlin, she is no relation. So let's see. Number 3, it's our Avenues for Success for Laura Ferguson and Sheila Faust. Number 4, we do need support services during the summer, so that's what those group of individuals are. And then number 5, it's the actual staff and site coordinators for Avenues for Success. Number 6, Melissa Burns was a late hire there for our elementary summer school. Most of the names went through back in April and May. Now, on 7 and 8, we are starting to put through our coaches for next year. We're running football and volleyball through, since a lot of those practices start in July. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to add a few more names before next Thursday. As paperwork comes in, we're adding names because I don't like to add them until all their paperwork is finished. And thank you. That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Superintendent Ronan. Number 7, our Policy Committee, Alice Rarica.
Well, we have one policy to talk about, and Ms. Christina Chesson is going to tell us all about it.
Sure. It's just one policy tonight, our emergency management and safety plan policy, and today would be our first opportunity to look at it. There's a slight change. We've always had this policy in place. It's simply a revision. The state, instead of reporting our emergency plans to the Ohio Department of Education, will be reporting them instead to the Ohio Director of Public Safety. And so that's the biggest change on this. It doesn't change the work that we do. We've added in a threat assessment, and all of the other rules that govern this we're in compliance of. So that's just a slight change for this month.
I believe the law changed. That's why we had to change the policy.
Yeah, to send the information to the Director of Public Safety. Yeah. And that concludes policies.
Thank you, Ms. Jessen. All right, on to the Finance Committee, Ms. Campos.
OSB's Capital Conference is back in person this fall, November 7th, 8th, and 9th. So you want to look at your calendar and put that on the calendar if you're hoping to go this fall.
Ms. Campos, now would be a great time to mention that because of the new dates that just got released, we are going to have to move our meeting date that week. The date that we have for our board meeting is Tuesday, November 9th.
Because of Thanksgiving, we can't shift both dates. So if it's a possibility, because it's right before break, if we could do the 16th and 18th, so we could still do a Tuesday, Thursday, they would just be crammed into the same week. So that way we wouldn't have any conflict with the conference dates or the holiday.
Okay.
Okay.
We will look at that, and if anybody has a conflict, well, hopefully it's early enough that everybody can rearrange. But I'll put that on the agenda to look at.
Perfect. Thank you.
I will make reservations for all the board members for the Capitol Conference like usual. But let me know if you want to attend once we get closer to the date. I can cancel reservations or backfill with other staff for the board members that cannot attend. So we still are waiting on costs for options B and C for Williams Elementary roof replacement. They should have those numbers to me very soon. We're just waiting on one small part for option C. We do have option B. So we'll be discussing that probably in the next couple of weeks. The biennium budget and potential new school funding formula are now in conference committee. We expect it to be approved by June 30th as required by law. As expected, the new fair school funding formula passed the House, but the Senate proposed their own funding formula, which is a mixture of what we currently have, a few ideas from the fair school funding plan, and they even pulled some very old parts of the prior funding formulas to patch holes in district revenues. However, it is important not to compare the two scenarios as written. The Senate version does not exclude open enrollment out from the district costs. So if one assumes that this will be excluded, their funding is lower than the House version. It's lower than what it looks like. And when you compare it to the House version, it is lower. It's also important to note that the Senate version does not take into consideration the cost of actually educating a child in Ohio like the Fair School Funding Act does. The Senate just started off with a per pupil cost that is actually very similar to what we're at right now, after barely increasing it for inflationary costs. No increase was built in to address the issues with unlawful school funding that we've faced for years and years. In addition, the Senate plan used very old facts for evaluations and median income that, once updated, will change their funding estimates to each district. On the agenda, the financial reports and change order logs are attached for your review. The month of May was good financially, and we almost got caught up with our delayed revenues. We have almost received all revenues estimated in the November and May forecasts, except for our final TIF payments, though our year-over-year revenues are still reflecting about $700,000 less than the prior year. 8.02 appropriation resolution for the current year that is not attached for your review because we are still updating that. We will update that many more times before I have it on the agenda for you Thursday. And that's the same thing with 8.03 temporary appropriations. We're still working to get our budget in for next year, but I will have the attachment ready for next week. 8.04 County Auditor Certificate of Estimated Resources, same thing. I will have a final estimate for the school year before the board meeting Thursday. 8.05 Transfers and Advances. At this time, it looks like we'll have to transfer to food service and the athletic fund. The pandemic hit those two funds particularly hard. I have done what I can with ESSER funding, with federal funding, to help those two funds, but the rest will have to come from the general fund. It looks like we'll transfer about $300,000 to the cafeteria and about just under $40,000 to the athletic fund. 8.06 Contract and Change Order with Kramer Feldman. This approval will update our records to reflect that we did not accept the bid for the lift at the health center. 8.07 Acceptance of the lowest bid for the health center elevator. Our bids came in lower than expected. Due to supply delays, though, our general contractor will see issues with supplying parts for the work. We will have the final bid to you in time to review before the Thursday regular meeting. That is everything I have. Oh, I'm sorry, and 8.08, amendment to Hamilton County Educational Service Center contract. We're going to include some marketing materials in that contract, so it is a small amendment to what we adopted last month. And that is everything for finance.
I did have one question for you. For the elevator, are we responsible for providing an elevator to the health clinic, or are they helping supplement some of those funds since it's access to their health center?
They are paying for some of it.
Okay.
They-
Do we know the
they found
percentage
funding for some of it.
I think $75,000 they're paying for.
out of, like, is it
I
50/50?
think
Is it?
I think, well, I think,
It's going to be about
about two-
210,000
Okay.
for the elevator and the storefront, so.
So is there a reason that we're on the hook for the majority of outside access for their clinic access?
We are using state school student wellness grants.
Okay.
That has to be used for wellness, so the
Okay.
clinic costs fit into that very well.
Okay.
So it's not coming from the general fund, it's coming from the
Perfect.
grant.
As long as it's not out of the general fund, that's
That's
my
right.
concern.
I
Okay,
agree.
perfect.
Julie, you mentioned 300,000 to the cafeteria we're going to have to transfer from the general fund. I assume that's just all leftover stuff?
Yes. That's just, the year has been running in the red all year long, cafeteria
Okay.
is. And that's what brought up all the
Yep.
attention
Yep.
to that fund.
Well, that's what I just wanted to be clear, since we have voted to go with this other company. I just
Yeah.
want to be clear that this is for old.
It is for
Old
old. It'll
expenses.
put us at 0 for June 30th, and then
Okay.
we'll have a little bit of payroll left for the people who have
Okay.
stretch pay. That'll cover
Okay.
that too.
Okay.
All right. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. June is always a short one for us. We will see you all next week. I motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Campos, call the roll.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Ware?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.